Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices like Decorum. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. You're about to see my Allegro 1-minute overview and final thoughts. This is designed to see if this game warrants more of your time. If it does, just keep watching because then you'll see my full intro overview and final thoughts. However, if you don't want to be spoiled anything and you want to skip right to the full review, use the time index below in YouTube. Decorum is a game of passive-aggressive cohabitation for 2 to 4 players where you'll be placing all different things, wall hangings, curios, and lamps in rooms. There's 20 scenarios in a 2-player game and 10 more in a 3 or 4-player game. And within each scenario, it'll have you set up the 4 rooms in certain ways like having lamps, paint colors, wall hangings, and more. And you'll have secret conditions that you must have fulfilled, like having no green objects, or having rooms that have 1 or fewer items must be painted red. So on your turn, you'll be doing things like removing items. We don't want this green one here, but we can't tell them because it's limited communication why we're doing things. Then they'll do things, but you can comment on whether or not you like it in a vague sort of way. Sometimes you'll be adding things. Other times, you'll be swapping them out for like kinds, and you might even be repainting the rooms. Each scenario is played over a certain amount of turns. When you get to certain spots, they'll know one of your conditions, so they'll know why you're doing certain things. Over the course of the game, you get to learn 3 of their conditions. Hopefully you'll get them all fulfilled, both of you, before you get to the end of the game. Yeah, Decorum A+ on a unique theme. Tired of the same old themes, this one's fresh and unique. The limited communication works well, and even better if you roleplay it a little bit. It feels like a simultaneous game of Mastermind, that old classic game that you're trying to figure out a puzzle, but you've got them going on at the same time, multiples of them. You're learning about others' needs at different times during the game and slowly trying to make your needs and theirs meet. It's very clever. All the tokens have different art on them, nice little touch. And as the new aspects reveal themselves, it does it at a certain timing that works well with the game, gives the game a good arc. There's different scenarios for 2 players versus 3 and 4 players. They all work well. For all player counts, I like 2 the best. And it's best to play it with the same group so you don't remember some of the things, although I still think there's more replayability with the scenario-based game than you would think, because you're never going to remember all exactly the same things in which scenario. Overall, this game was a breath of fresh air, a great limited communication cooperative game, and it got a Saxophone Serenade. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be decorating a house together, trying to make the living room and the bedroom look good. Lamps here, wall hangings there, retro, unique, weird looking, and we're trying to get both of us to be fulfilled, or all of us. Today we're taking a look at Decorum, which is the passive-aggressive game of cohabitation. This is a limited communication cooperative game where you're trying to decorate a house, unique theme. Let me show how it works. I'll see you on the other side. In Decorum, you're going to be decorating a house cooperatively but with limited communication. There's going to be different things you'll be putting in the house, like different lamps, different curios, which are like decor, or wall hangings. Now these are not only just going to be different colors, but the icons also help you see that these are all modern. These are antique, these are retro, and these are unusual. You'll also be painting the rooms different colors as well. Now here we have the game set up for 2 players, which is the main way in the rules that it says to play. I'll show you the 3 and 4 variants afterwards. Now here you'll set up this room, or all the rooms, living room, bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, in specific ways depending on the certain scenario. Now for 2 players, there's actually 20 different scenarios that you'll go through because you're trying to solve the puzzle of that. So for 2 players, you have 20 scenarios. For 3 to 4 players, there's another 10. So there's 30 total scenarios in here. So you'll open these up and one of them will tell you how to set it up. This is not this. I am not spoiling anything. I actually was sent a demo set that's used for reviewers and such. So this won't spoil anything. So it tells you how to set it up. So here we see different things. This room is painted yellow, painted red. This one has a blue wall hanging, retro here. So there's basically 3 things that can be in the room, which are a curio, a wall hanging, and a lamp. They all sort of fit the way they show, and you can have you'll have a color there. You're basically trying to figure out how to get it to look the way that's okay for you, but also for the person that you're playing with. Now again, this is the demo, so I'm not spoiling anything. Each player is going to get a card, and this card is going to tell them certain things that they need to happen, conditions. And it's secret, obviously. Like mine says, the house must contain exactly 2 curios. The downstairs must contain more objects than the upstairs. The house must not contain any green objects, and rooms that contain 1 or fewer objects must be painted red. So if I have all 4 of these, and they're fulfilled, At the end of my sort of action, I'll just let the other player know that I'm fulfilled. If both players are fulfilled, well, you've won this scenario. So the way it works is one player is going to take an action, then if they are fulfilled, they'll mention it, and then the other player's got to comment on that. Then, simply, it'll go to the next player. Once both players have taken a turn, this will move to the next round marker. You have a certain amount of rounds in order to get all the players fulfilled, depending on the amount of players in the game. Now, on your turn, for an action, you have different things you can do. For example, one of the things is I didn't want any green objects. So, for an action, I can just take an object and remove it and place it back on that board that I showed you that holds all the components. That would be it. Then the other player can comment. Now, there's limited communication in this game. Generally speaking, you're supposed to be able to say, I love it, I don't like it, nah, I can work around it, stuff like that. You're not supposed to say anything specific about colors or rooms or types of things. So this person might go, I love it, I hated that painting in there, or something like that, and that's fine, because that's exactly what you did. But you're not supposed to say, well, the one you had in there earlier was better. You're not supposed to give hints like that. But the commenting can be sort of role-playing. You can be like, oh man, that green just looked, it was booger green, I hated it in that room, and blue painting with all these different colors in there, it just makes me dizzy with all these colors. So you can sort of role play as well. It makes the game a little bit more fun. Now another thing you could do, and then it'd be the other player's turn, they can take an object and place it. So maybe they take the yellow lamp and they put it in the yellow painted room. Then if they were fulfilled, they'd say it, and then we can comment. And we might say, I don't like it, or whatever. Then we would move this, and it'd be our turn again. We go back and forth like that. So you can remove an object, you can place an object, you can swap an object for the same. So for example, let's say I didn't like this red curio here. I might want a blue one there. You can swap the same item from it like that. And the other thing you could do is paint a room. You take the color off, you put it back near the board, and you paint it a different color. You can't swap paint to paint on different rooms, but you can take off and swap any one color. That's pretty much it. You can also pass, but you'll only do that if you're already fulfilled. And that's pretty much it. You'll do those actions. Now, over the course of the game, you'll get to specific spots. Like on round 15, you're gonna have your first heart-to-heart. You'll flip this over, and each player is going to say one of their conditions to the other player. For example, maybe the other player kept placing green things in there, and I kept taking them off. So at this point, I'd go, you know what? My house must, house can't contain any green objects. They're gonna go, oh, okay, that's what you're doing. And you'll hear something from somebody else, and you learn things. And so after that, this comes up here. Then for every 5 turns after that, so when it hits 5, and then when it hits 10, you'll have 2 more of these. So at the end of this, after this, and you get here, each of you will know 3 of their 4 conditions, and you're trying to get both fulfilled before it gets to the end here. If so, you win, you go to the next scenario. If not, you lose. And if you win, there's ways that you can score depending on how well you did, but usually just go to the next scenario. That's how you play a 2-player game. They say you go in order from 1 to 20. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players, there's 10 scenarios here, and they have different level numbers. You can play them in any order, but they are leveled. So you can sort of say, hey, I want to do a harder one or an easier one or things like that. Now in a 3 or 4 player game, there'll be more cards. Each player gets one of these cards that shows their conditions that they need to be fulfilled. Now each player also gets little cards. Each of these is one of the conditions that's on this big card. I'm not going to show you this because I don't want to spoil it, but on the back of here there's a certain amount of conditions, and for each of those conditions there's one single card, because instead of having a sort of a heart-to-heart, you have a house meeting, which is similar, where at certain points you're going to be able to give any one of the other players one of these little cards, which is one of your conditions, and you give it to them so they can see it, and other players will give some to you maybe. Over the course of the game, in future house meetings, you can sort of take the card back from someone and give it to someone else. So essentially it's just a way to split up the conditions 1 each, so you can pass these out. So when it comes to that, you're going to secretly give it to someone so they get to know one thing of yours. And if you're playing a 3-player game, each player will get one of the cards from the 4th player. For example, the yellow player would get this one, the blue would get this one, the green would get this one. So each player, you're playing with less players, but each of those players now have one additional condition. That's pretty much it. That's the difference. There's a few other small differences, but in a nutshell, that's how you play it with 3 or 4 players. All right, let's first start with the things that I liked about this game. Typically, my biases coming in are, I usually like co-op games, just generally speaking. I like limited communication games, and this is both of those, so that's why I was really interested in this one. This game, it just has such a unique theme. I'm tired of seeing the same old themes regurgitated over and over, and the zombies, and the pirates, and the Cthulhu, and it's just like, come on, come up with something fresh. This is fresh. 2 thumbs up for this theme here about decorating a house. Love to see fresh themes, and the way that it's used is very thematic. I love that. Now, the aspect of this, I typically, like as I mentioned, like limited communication role play games, of cooperative games. even limited communication just in general. But with this, you can make it even more fun when you role play it a little bit, and you're like, oh man, that green lamp, I can't take that green lamp in there. It just clashes with the red paint, stuff like that. And again, you're not supposed to give too much information. The communication is supposed to be somewhat vague, but it is fun to sort of like just make up reasons why you didn't like that very specific item, just to have fun with it. It makes the game more fun, and not everyone's gonna do it, but we thought it would be even more fun when we did that. This game, when I was a kid, I used to play this game called Mastermind. I'm sure you've probably maybe heard of it, maybe even played it, where you're trying to figure out which colored pegs are in which holes, and you're like putting things out, and they're telling you which ones are right. Yeah, this is right, but it's not in the right spot. This is wrong. This game feels like a simultaneously played Mastermind, where you know your puzzle, and they know their puzzle, and you're trying to do things to make it work, but by doing that, you're gonna screw up their puzzle. And the interesting thing is like, there's a lot of different ways that you can win the game, where it's like between the different, things that need to happen, our board might look completely different, or our house might look completely different from the people that are playing next to us that have they're playing the same exact game, and we might both have done it, but they look differently because of just the way that things work. And I like that. There's a lot of flexibility in how you get to what you get to, and you're trying to figure it out. You're doing a little bit of trial and error. It's like, oh, I moved this over here. They said they didn't like that. They said they could work with that. They took it straight out. Okay, well, why are they doing that? And then as you learn things, which is the next thing, as you learn things about others' needs, you're like, oh, I get it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to do something that helps me get closer to my fulfillment, but at the same time, not screwing yours up that I now know. And as the game goes on, you learn a little bit more. And so it's like, okay, now I got 4 things of mine I'm trying to think about, and now I know 3 things of yours. How do I make a move to make it so that all these things in the stars align? It's just a really cool, deductive game. It's fresh, it's unique, it's just so good. Now, I also like that the tokens, they all have different art on them. So if you look at the same piece, and there's multiples of them, they all have slightly different art on them. Small little touch, but attention to detail here does go a long way. And I like, again, the timing of when you do the reveal. Now, there is a rule that like if you're totally stuck and you're screwing up and it's before the first time you look at it, you could say, hey, you know what, let's have the house meeting now. Let's go to turn 15 and I got to show you what's going on here because we're just going to keep going in circles. You can do that. But I like how it's sort of timed out, like every 5 turns after that, you're getting to reveal things and it really ramps out good. And that worked out well too. I like that you have different scenarios for 2 players versus 3 and 4. Because in the 2s you're supposed to go in order, the 3s and 4s you can do in any order, but they're leveled. And that's important that there's 2 different ones because the game does feel differently with 2 versus 3 or 4. The game works fine with multiple players, more players. I think I like it best with the 2, but it still works well with 3 where it's like you really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm passing this card over here, now I know this, now I want to pass it in the next turn, the next house meeting. And it's like you really feel like it feels harder because you've got more things to do, but it's interesting how you learn different things about different people. Like this player just learned a little bit from that player. I don't know anything about them, but I learned something from them. And now who am I gonna give my card to? Well, I'm gonna give my card to someone who seems to be messing my thing up the most. There's a lot of strategy as to which player you give the card to. Anyway, it works well with both different sets of player cards, even though it feels slightly different. On the negative side of things, this is a scenario-based game, so it is best if you're playing this multiple times within a short amount of time to play with the same group until you're finished with all the scenarios. Because if I play this zone, if I play a 2-player game with somebody and I do scenario 1 and 2, and that next weekend I want to play it again, but they haven't played it, I don't necessarily want to start on a higher one, especially in the 2-player game where it says you're supposed to play in order. But I might remember some of the things from there. So it's best to play with like the same group all the way through. However, I will say that your mileage might vary with the replayability here. Some people that have photographic memories, they're going to be one and done. And even if that's the case, I think that's okay. You still get a good value because think of the Spiel des Jahres winner last year, Micro Macro Crime City. That game was, I think, 16 cases. And once you played them, they were so memorable that you literally could never play them again. It doesn't matter how long. You probably couldn't play any of them again. Here, if you play a few cases or a few scenarios, and you wait a week or 2 or 3, and you come back to those, I'd be hard-pressed, especially if you're taking the same card each time, the same colored card, I'd be hard pressed for you to remember which scenario was it. You're going to remember like, oh, the second scenario, they needed to have more things upstairs and downstairs. You're not. So I think that even though this is scenario based, there's actually a decent amount of replayability here. I'm not going to say unlimited, but it's more than what you originally would think. Oh, there's 20 scenarios for 2 players. Once we play it, we're done. No, you can play it with the same player again. Just put a little time between it. Maybe find some players, play 3 player, and then come back to it. And I think you'll be fine with it. But it is something to be warned about, that some people have photographic memories. They're going to be one and done. But even if that's the case, it's still good value there. So that's it. And because this is so fresh and I like it so much, it's getting my highest award, which is a Saxophone Serenade, which means I need to get rid of a game to make room for this one. And for that, let's hit it. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing, thematic, premium stitch edge mats from noted board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it's a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Go to GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below. Yeah, Decorum's unique theme is a huge plus. Sick and tired of the same old themes, this is fresh and unique. The limited communication works well, and even more well,